Jill, what is up, Battle Union fans, and welcome to the Union News number 2 with your two analysts, me, Schady,
and myself, Shroomraver. Yes, indeed, we are here for the second Union News, as Schady has said. Lots to go over, so I guess we will start off with just a few things we missed from last week. A couple of bench trades that we didn't mention. There was a little bit of timing issues with a few people given a bit of extra time to get their transfers done.
So don't blame us.
yeah, it's entirely not our fault. We are not to blame. We are never to blame. Blame the
we are
government
blame the
or something.
Illuminati.
Yes, that too. But yeah, what we should say is that Jedi Cadet brought in Galvantula for Zygarde for his second game, and Xenon brought in Piloswine for his Spiritomb.
Which means Stealth Rocks.
Yes, he finally does have that big, nice Stealth Rock option on his team. Yeah, a couple of options for him there. So yeah, those are the two bench trades that we missed. So let's get into the games and see how they might have affected things. So, first up, we are going to mention one of those people. We saw Jedi and the Highland Houndooms, as Schady selfishly coughs. How dare you?
Excuse me.
We saw Jedi and the Highland Houndooms taking on Anima and the Golden State Dragons. That one ended in a 2-0 win for the Golden State Dragons. Some really interesting team building options on there. Jedi, I think he was lacking just a few crucial things that he really wanted to bring to help him out. You know, he had an issue with hazards, he had an issue with removing hazards and setting them up. He did have some interesting sets, and he worked well around things that he didn't necessarily have immediate answers for, like the Mega Medicham. But on the other hand, you know, Anima was running some fantastic sets, able to take out win conditions, once again, with specialized things, with her Miracote Almamola taking out Rotomosh, which is something of a win condition for Jedi.
Indeed, very interesting set there. And it worked out, so that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Moving on, we had Richie and the Liv Wurmple FC taking on Gabriel and the LA Galaxy in a very, very close 1-0 victory for Gabriel, with Rotom Heat coming in clutch and getting a high damage roll on Yakiron Black. You know, Gabe trained his Pokemon well, and he got a high roll. Very interesting. Richie lost another game very close this time. It's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if he can come back from this with his powerful draft and his definitely abilities that he has.
Yeah.
After 2 losses.
Yeah, he has suffered those 2 losses, but you know, the beginning of a season did not necessarily dictate how the rest of it's going to go, of course.
Indeed. Especially since he's going to be facing a friend next week of his. A very, very good friend. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah, we'll get onto that in a bit. As we move on to the third game, Freedomion and the Welshions taking on a good friend of his in the form of Squirtacular and the Kentucky Kecleons. Once again, another very close 1-0. This time in favour of Fredo and the Welshions. Once again, maintaining that calm head of his after a very powerful, dominating performance last week. It went a bit closer to the wire this time. And, you know, by his own admission, he wasn't as happy with his performance, but he managed to get the win against Josh Squirtacular, who actually played quite well, certainly,
Definitely.
as Fredo himself played. And, you know, maybe he made a bit of a few interesting decisions, letting things go a bit too easily for my liking. There are a few interesting decisions on Fredo's team building side as well, but as I say, we'll get into that more in the power rankings, which will be up, of course, on Thursday. But Fredo getting his second win of the season out of 2 games, looking to go on and really stamp his name on this league.
Indeed, very good to see that he's actually not happy with his performance at all, even though he won, which definitely shows his attitude, which is really cool. Moving on, we have the Somerset Scissors, now coached by Jack the Don Fanatic in his first game against the Slovenian Arcanines in a 2-0 victory. And this game was over pretty early, in my opinion at least. As soon as Jack managed to get up the spikes, it was pretty much over. Because Xenon did not bring any hazard removal. The majority of his team was grounded, except for Electros, which died fairly early. And in the end, it was actually Registeel pulling through, which I think his game plan was Megalopony getting the kills with the hazard support. But Registeel managed to claim 3 kills and a 2-0 victory for Jack in his first game. Very, very solid performance on his part. Xenon, not so much, not having hazard removal against a team that has the potential of spike stacking. Don't agree with that whatsoever. You know, there's a problem again of him only having 1 hazard removal.
Yeah.
And yeah, definitely a very, very good game from Jack. Xenon still has to show what he can do after 2 losses that were both, in my opinion, very one-sided. And I definitely still think he can come back from this, because as we mentioned 5,100 times, he's a very experienced player and he knows what he does. What he does? Yeah.
He knows what he does. He knows what he does.
We're gonna stick with that.
English.
I'm not gonna correct that. That's the sentence for now.
That is the official party line. He knows what he does. Yeah, moving on to the 5th game, we had CG and the Blastburn Rovers going up against Enzo and the Swiskers. That came in as another close game. We see a lot of close games this week. The 2-0 victory for Enzo and the Swiskers. Both coaches bringing some very interesting sets. We saw Custap Healing Wish on CG's Latias, which was great. And on a personal level, on the other side, I really am a huge fan of physically defensive Victini, which Enzo did bring. Not massively needed in this game. Once again, Mega Venusaur putting in a lot of work with one absolutely crucial play, leaving it in on CG's Mega Pinsir, going for the Hidden Power Rock on the Swords Dance, and from there it was a win for Enzo. He has gone to the school of you don't mess with threats.
Definitely. Very, very ballsy play on his part. A lot of people don't agree with that. We'll get into that in the power rankings. I think it was a very reasonable play. Because Mega Pinsir is a fucking threat, even though there was a Pythagoras still in the back.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I said, we'll get into that. And the last game was actually the only one that wasn't necessarily close in the score. The Twin Leaf Tyrants and Bice Productions faced the Bristol City Fletchlings and Ashton Ake. A 4-0 victory for Bice, with actually Raichu pulling through big time. Surprising, because I said in the beginning, I'm not a fan of Raichu. I think it's a very weak Pokemon.
Yeah.
But it has that nice electric ice coverage with Hidden Power and the Nasty Plot option. And Ashton's team ended up being really, really weak to that. So, no, he kind of overlooked a threat there. And Raichu pulled through. And that's really interesting to see. Some questionable plays on Ashton's side. Some plays I don't agree with that didn't work out at the end, or in the end. And that just ended up in a very solid 4 victory for Bice.
Yeah, very important not to underestimate those threats. It's happened in a few leagues and in a few games in those various leagues. Raichu, we've seen before, has been underestimated, and here, really pulling through, as you say, for Bice. I actually think that both coaches were maybe a little bit wasteful in some of their mons, letting them go a bit too easily, but as Schady said, we will get into those details in the power rankings that will be up on Thursday.
Indeed.
So, sorry, both of us going for that. So those are the sort of results and summaries of what has happened in week 2. Now, a look ahead to week 3 to see exactly what kind of matchups we are looking at there, and the bench trades that our coaches have made to try and prepare themselves a bit better. First up, we have the Golden State Dragons versus the Welchions. That's going to be a really, really good top table game. Both coaches coming in off the back of 2 victories. And that's going to be a really great game. I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do. Frito, as we mentioned earlier, was a bit unhappy with his performance on a personal level, which, as we said, shows his attitude and shows he has a very good attitude towards this. We'll have to see if he can, by his own standards, pull his socks up and really show a great game to Anima, who, as we know, is a very talented battler. And that's going to be a fantastic game to see an early front runner by week 3 for the title.
Yeah, and whoever wins this game is in a very, very solid position to maybe even winning the title, you know?
Yeah.
Moving on, we have the Blastburn Rovers and CG taking on the Liv Wurmple FC and Richie. A game that I personally look forward to a lot because they're both very, very good friends of mine.
Yeah.
And they're both very good friends with each other as well. Both not the best start to the season. Both lost their first 2 games. But they're still both very, very solid drafts. Big threats to each other as well. I guess you can guess which those are. And I'm definitely looking forward to this. And one team is going to be 0-3, and one will get their first win, which is always very interesting and a lot of pressure for both coaches.
Yeah, it'll be nice for one of them to have that pressure lifted to finally get themselves off the mark with a victory.
Indeed.
Yep. Third game, we're going to see Bice and the Twin Leaf Tyrants going up against the Somerset Sizzles and interim coach Jack, aka the Don Fanatic. Again, the Twin Leaf Tyrants, they go into this game off the back of 2 wins. Jack got his season personally off to a good start with the 2-0 win against Xenon. So that's going to be a fascinating game. Bice has shown himself to be a very talented battler early on in the league. Jack, for some, might be a bit of an unknown quantity. He certainly was for Xenon. We'll have to see how Bice can adapt to the Somerset Sizzles' new management style.
Yeah, Jack definitely improved from his PPL season, and it's nice to see. He played an amazing game, and we'll see if he can continue playing that well. Moving on, we have the Swiskers versus the Bristol City Fledglings. This is the first game where there's actually a bench trade happening, and Enzo brought Tita in for Sharpedo. Interesting, because Tita is a very slow Pokemon, which Sharpedo, of course, relies on its speed. It's a bulky mon for a rather frail mon. But Tita has the pursuit trapping options. Tita is a very, very solid option. You know, has a lot of weaknesses. Most importantly, that 4x fighting weakness. But I'm really interested to see how that will work out. And both teams started the season very well, week 1. And Enzo managed to continue that trend with winning week 2. While Ashton kind of lost week 2, you might say. Because he lost.
Yeah.
That was a very logical sentence, trust me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Looking forward to the game and see if Enzo can actually go 3-0, which would be an incredible start.
Yeah, and that bench trade does, of course, give that weather option we haven't seen a lot of this league just yet. We'll have to see how Enzo is going to use that if he indeed decides to.
Indeed.
Yep. So, the 5th match of week 3, we're going to see LA Galaxray going up against the Slovenian Arcanines. This is going to be a massive match for both of these players. LA Galaxray and Gabriel, they have won both of their first games. Xenon, of course, still looking for his first win. So this is going to be massive. If Gabe can come away with the win, that will give him 3 from 3, and he will be in a really solid position. Conversely, if Xenon comes away with the loss, that's going to really be putting enormous pressure on an early favourite, I think we would assume, for many people. To take 3 losses from the first 3, that's never ideal. He will be really, really desperate for a win, and I'm fully expecting to bring his A-game here and really sort of look to cover up the issues that he's had in the first 2 games.
Definitely a 2-0 team versus an 0-2 team. Very interesting matchup there. Yep. Moving on to the last game, and 2 more bench trades. The Kentucky Caglions and Squirtacular taking on the Highland Houndooms and Jedi Cardad. Both teams currently sitting at 0-2. And Josh, Squirtacular, decided to pick up Porygon 2 for Sanic, Shaman. No, gotta go fast anymore. P2, a incredibly bulky Pokemon.
Yeah.
Jedi's knockoff options are limited. He has Scissor, and I think that's it. I might be forgetting something. But yeah, if you don't knock off a P2, it's gonna be really fucking annoying to you. And P2 definitely gives him a potential Trick Room option, which I guess he could use that. And overall, a very bulky mon that can still put on some offensive pressure. While Jedi decided to pick up his first Stealth Rocker. Metagross coming from the bench, full Galvantula, which goes right back to the bench. And Metagross is a fucking threat and a half. Definitely something that can take on P2 to some extent. And he finally has Stealth Rocks. Stealth Rocks are the most important move in the game. That way around. So good that he finally has them. And yeah, interesting game. While Josh's performances were both very, very solid, even though he lost. Jedi's were also pretty good in game week 2. While week 1 was kind of eh. But once again, one team's gonna go 0-3, and one team's gonna pick up their first win. Always interesting, those kind of games, because it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, those bench trades, really interesting stuff. Jedi finally going for the power that he has there. The Kecleon's bringing in P2. Looking at Jedi's team, he does have a lot of special bulk kicking around there. So it's really going to be sort of incumbent on Jedi to be able to deal with P2 in its defensive form, rather than P2 threatening in a specially offensive way. Because Jedi has, as I say, a lot of special bulk. It'll be interesting to see what route Squirtacular decides to take with P2, if he goes offensive or as a sort of more stalling defensive set.
I mean, maybe physically offensive sharpen set.
Well, there is also that. I mean, we've seen stranger things, TBU fans.
If he does that, I'm just gonna give him #1 power ranking.
I mean,
if it works.
he will be the Lord of all lords, bringing sharpen P2. Something we all, I think, want to see deep down.
Definitely.
So yeah, that is next week's fixtures and the bench trades and what we think of them. So, finally, we get to that little section where we take a look at what the managers are saying about each other. We had a few instances last week. It seems that things have calmed down just a little bit. Not really too much to pick up on. The managers really sort of feeling each other out. Pause. However, of course, there is a new face in the league in the form of Jack, interim manager of the All Somerset Scissors. A big personality, someone who really likes to talk a big game, does Jack. And it seems he might... Well, I mean, apart from that win he just did get, of course.
That's not the point.
But he likes to talk a big game, and it seems he might have met his match in the form of Squirtacular. We saw Jack uploading his analysis and saying to everyone in the chat, you know, I've done this, if anyone's interested. Squirtacular instantly responding, no we're not, go away scrub. Jack's instant reply was to tell Squirtacular to go win a game or something, then come back. There we have Schady with his main job here as an analyst. He does like to analyse, but his main job is to do MLG air horn sounds. Yeah. It is his calling in life.
Yep.
Really.
Definitely.
But yeah, that actually spilled over onto Twitter, all in good nature, of course. But those two really sort of going at it in the form of their smack talk, and they meet in week 6. So we'll have to see how they have stacked up by then, who is ahead in both rankings and on the table, and whether Squirtacular has indeed won a game or something, as Jack so enigmatically put it. What do we think of that, Schady? What do we think of that?
Definitely very interesting. They've both shown very solid performances. Well, Jake only has shown once.
Yeah,
but you get my point. It's gonna take a while until they face off against each other, but we'll see if Jack can back up his statements for once, because he's usually not the one who actually backs up the shit he's talking.
Yeah, his track record in seasons played in draft format has been well, would we say successful? I'm not sure.
No.
Not entirely, but he's got off to a good start here. And as I say, we'll just have to see where they stand when they finally meet on the field of battle.
Indeed.
So yeah, that is pretty much going to wrap things up here from the Battle Union news. Thank you all very much for joining us. We do hope you've enjoyed. As you know, of course, this is all sort of our opinions. If you have any opinions of your own, what do you think about the matches that have happened? Let us know down in the comment section below. Let us know what you think of Week 3's matchups. Who do you think is going to come out with wins? Who do you think is not going to be as successful? So, yeah, that, as I say, is going to wrap things up. Schady, any last final nuggets of wisdom to add?
As Shroom said, thank you all for watching. This is always fun to do. Just a somewhat quick little thing. Yeah. And definitely look forward to the power rankings. We're going to go more in depth into things and stuff.
Yes.
And it's going to be fun, and it's going to be a long video, because long videos are fun. Sometimes,
yes.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. We do love them, if the older computers can keep up with it. Mine has a bit of trouble doing. we had about 5 minutes before we started where I was desperately trying to make my computer do the things I wanted it to, and it just wasn't having any of it. But we cross those bridges when we come to them, ladies and gents. And yeah, as we say, that is going to be it from today. Thank you once again for joining us. Join us again on Thursday for the Power Rankings. And I guess with that, we will see you then. Have a good day, TBU fans.
Goodbye.